Hi, so I am 9 months topical steroid withdrawal. I'm in my ninth month, and I'm going to take you through kind of like the timeline of my progression from just before I developed topical steroid withdrawal, or rather, what is the actual name for it? Topical steroid addiction, yeah. So from that point to my withdrawal and up to now 9 months withdrawal. So here we go. I'm using my infrared light while I'm filming this. That's why there's a red glow. As you can see, my skin's not great at the moment. I've been eating really a lot of junk, lots of biscuits and samosas and pizza and all kinds of junk. I've just let myself go completely out of control when it comes to diet. But yeah, let me get started with my update. I've always had eczema. I used over-the-counter topical steroids quite frequently in the few months before I started to develop some severe symptoms. I remember I was using it around my eyes, my mouth, my neck, and possibly the creases, like on my wrists. I think just before I developed severe symptoms, I'd also had that month I'd had thrush, and so I was mixing it with my clomitrazole, which is an antifungal. So I was using it on my vagina as well. And so, yeah, around the eyes, vagina, areas that are apparently like highly receptive to the cortisone and can increase the risk of cortisone addiction. So here, this is before my skin was problematic, December 2019. I was obviously healthy, happy. My skin was really great, as I said, using over-counter cortisone quite regularly. Then I developed really itchy eyes, sure, very bad. And I remember coming back from holiday and my eyes had really badly flared up, just like the tissue around my eyes. And, you know, over the course of the first month, I visited my doctor, and my doctor gave me oral corticosteroids. I was still using over-the-counter cortisone. We were using mast cell inhibiting eye drops, and I tried at one point in that first month Topic, but that gave me a really bad reaction. Like, my skin really didn't like that. And here, and you'll see the laboratory evaluations I had at that point were aeroallergens, so dust mites, grasses, pollen, cats, dogs, molds. Here you can see eyes, mouth, chin really bad toward the end of Jan, getting worse and worse. My face was really swelling. The skin around my eyes was thinning, paper thin, and very kind of wrinkly. I looked like a completely different person. Right at the end of Jan, it had spread to my armpits, and the severity of the rash had gotten a lot more severe. Behind my ears, it was really itchy and bothering me. You can see under my armpit there, getting patches on both sides. You can see it's getting worse around my chin and my mouth. Here, my symptoms are getting even worse. So bad. Under my chin, around my face, like all the center of my face was terribly itchy. You can see that line around my eyes. I was starting to use my infrared lamp. I had my first dermatology visit. I was put onto prescribed strong cortisone, antihistamines, and he told me to use Vaseline instead of my natural cream. Following that, I did see some improvements, a lot of improvements on my face and neck and arms, but the rash had moved down to my trunk and onto my thighs. I got some patch tests done, and what we found was I was allergic to a number of topical agents. After the topical cortisone, I managed to take a trip to Cape Town, but as I was on my trip, my skin got progressively worse, and I became quite sensitive to the sun. Bearing in mind at this point I was using strong topical cortisone as well as Vaseline, and you can see the rash has just gotten really angry and itchy along my trunk, and I had to wrap myself in a silk scarf so that my bra didn't irritate my skin. yeah, the itch was quite unbearable on this trip. I started to get like discoid eczema on my buttocks and on my thighs, a bit of urticaria, so that raised rash also on my thighs, so itchy while I was away. And it was summer, so it was hot, I was hot and sweaty as well. You can see the redness is starting to spread. My face is getting red. My hands are starting to get quite reactive. By the middle of March, I got back from holiday and my skin was blistering and oozing. It was quite severe. I think I'd had a reaction to one of the creams I tried to use while I was on my trip. And I phoned the dermatologist straight away because it was so severe. So then my second dermatology visit, and I was put onto oral cortisone, quite a strong, longer course that was tapering off gradually, and topical cortisone. And it just progressively got worse from there onwards. I had a number of repeat prescriptions for a number of months. I was in lockdown, but my rash just kept on spreading and getting worse. Mid-April, I'd seen some improvement following a low salicylate, low amine diet. And you can see the pictures. I've cleared up quite nicely. Unfortunately, the benefits didn't last very long. I think I was clear for about a week, and then my body decided that it would start reacting to things again. At the 1st of June, I decided that nothing, all the drugs were not working, so I stopped the cortisone, and you can see that I flared up so terribly. The redness starts to come, the swelling, puffiness in the face. Bearing in mind my diet's still very clean at this point, but the rash is just unbearable. Like, it was a really, really bad period this first month. But I just knew that the cortisone wasn't working. I was getting folliculitis, so I think it's an infection and swelling in the hair follicles. And my rash started to present in so many different ways. I've mentioned the folliculitis. The redness had spread. I had a fine, bumpy, non-inflamed rash everywhere. Very puffy around my face and my eyes. My skin felt hot and dry and sore to move and extremely itchy at night. Yeah, everything like showering, bathing, creaming, everything was really hard at this stage. I had started to develop ear eczema around my ears, and it started to develop in my ears. That's actually, now that I think of it, it's gotten better, a bit better. I had started to develop a dry, itchy scalp. And, I must say that I had cracks in the corners of my mouth since early Jan. So this was like cracks in the corner of my mouth. It's called chylosis or chelosis, and can be, nutrient deficiencies as well. But that was a persistent problem in those earlier months. Then I decided to try a natural approach, saw a homeopath on the 8th of July. She kind of worked with me on a gut healing program. The gut healing program involved, although I was already doing daily cabbage juices, but kind of focusing more on cabbage juice, low salicylate, low amine, continued with that, dairy-free, sugar-free, wheat-free. I was kind of doing that anyway. I was eating oats at that point, although I wasn't tolerating it very well. I remember eating too much of it and bloating a lot. I was supplementing with homeopathic sulfur, bentonite clay, psyllium husk, and one or two other things. We did do antimicrobial program at some point, but we were focusing initially on fibers. I cleared up initially, not cleared up, but I got a bit better in the first month. So much so that I was able to go on a biking trip with my partner. Just a day trip. But the benefits weren't very long-lived, and you can see by the 15th of September, I had my biggest flare that was stress-induced. I'd driven into the back of someone, and I just flared up and was so scratchy and itchy that I kind of ripped my skin apart. A week later, my legs had swollen up terribly. I'd had to go to the doctor because I think I had a bacterial infection, so I got antibiotics at that point. By the 18th of September, I was a bit improved. My skin was healing up a bit. I put myself onto green soup, so very simple green chicken soup, I think it was, for a few days, and that seemed to help. October, I don't have any pictures from this period. I think I was probably at my worst. I'd started to shed a lot. Like, that was the most shocking development, I suppose, is the amount of skin loss that was happening. Then in month 6 of topical steroid withdrawal, so November, I saw significant improvements with the change of my diet from a kind of a diet that included legumes and gluten-free whole grains, and I moved over to a more carnivore-ish style of the low salicylate, low amine diet. In addition to that, I had based my diet off of a fasting mimicking diet for the course of the week that I started making these changes. And in that week, I saw significant improvements in my skin and dryness. My 7th month, so middle December, I was also really starting to scratch myself raw. You can see in these images, I've got lots of lacerations on my skin. My skin was very dry and flaky as well. My hairline started to flake a lot. Yeah, my knees were itchy. This was another thing. The later months, well, I started to get really itchy knees. Inner thighs, very itchy. My legs became so itchy in December and November, I would say. And you can see I've scratched myself black and blue, bruised, quite intolerable. Lots of dryness. Waking up, my bed was just covered in flakes. Wrists and hands really bad. It's very, very irritated and agitated and red and uncomfortable and raw and oozing. All of the things. Some mornings I would scratch my hands so badly, and even here my face, scratch my face so badly that I would start to ooze and get really inflamed. So in January, which is month 8 of topical steroid withdrawal, I did a 1-week strict carnivore diet, and I launched that with a 2-day kind of bone broth fast, which I found incredibly helpful, reduced the dryness of my skin and reduced the itchiness and rashiness quite significantly. I just found it really hard to stick to, and I just rebounded into eating a whole bunch of junk after that. Can see when my diet goes, when I lose control of my diet, my skin gets really bad. Lots of itching, lots of flares, lots of scratching and lacerations. Backs of my legs oozing from scratching down the back of my knees. This is me just after I've gotten out of the shower, so red but moisturized, very inflamed. So that's my topical steroid journey so far. I'm in a month 9 now of topical steroid withdrawal in February 2021. And what I can tell you is that there's no better feeling than seeing myself starting to recover. Doing this process of doing the timeline was incredibly hard. It took me a long time to face those pictures again, and I had to take a lot of breaks in between because it was a lot to process. It's been hard, like hard beyond what words can explain, and I've harbored a lot of anger and resentment toward the medical industry as a result of it. And but I'm trying to stay on top of my emotions. Nonetheless, I am rambling. I did my timeline. Here you can see a visual representation of my timeline, with the earlier months using increasing doses of steroids and then withdrawing over the past 9 months, and some of the strange symptoms that I experienced. What I didn't mention is that I also have super swollen glands, which is quite typical, I think, for a lot of people with topical steroid withdrawal. My groin glands are like massive marbles. And then the other thing was problems regulating my body temperature, mostly being incredibly cold throughout the course of this experience, having to use a hot water bottle. I'm mostly always got this light on me. It's an infrared heat lamp, which I'll talk about in another video. But yeah, cold all the time. That is getting better as well. The other symptom that I've experienced more recently is hair loss in my eyebrows and my hairline, and that's just because I'm scratching a lot there more recently. That seems to be getting a bit better this month, I hope. And lack of sleep, like massive, massive insomnia. But I can say that some days I'm functioning on 1 or 2 hours, but most of the time I'm averaging between 2 and 5 hours, I'd say. So I do talk a lot about diet in this video, and that's because I am a nutritional therapist and I'm just trying to figure it out. Like, how is diet impacting this condition? Obviously, there's hormonal regulation and there's inflammation in the body and there's allergic reactions and you know all of these things can be impacted by diet theoretically, based on my knowledge, and so it's been one big experimentation over the course of my topical steroid withdrawal. So I'm sharing a bit of that information, and I by no means have it even closely to figured out, but the experimentation has been quite illuminating. And another change now, month 9 for me, is my skin's getting stronger. Like it has been over the past 2 months. It's getting stronger, so I may be itchy and scratchy all the time, but I don't wreck my skin as easily. I do bleed when I scratch. My nails are short, but I manage to break my skin nonetheless. But and the dryness seems to be getting a bit better, like more manageable. I'm not leaving massive piles of dry skin everywhere and in my bed and stuff like that. So I'm still shedding a lot, but not like I was. So it does get better. And so please, I'd love it if you guys leave your comments below, connect with me happily. I'm very much alone in this, and I'm looking for people to connect with as well. And I'm so happy as well to make friends out there with other people who are suffering with this horrible condition and just be there for each other. So yeah, like it, subscribe, and I hope that I can provide more valuable content for you guys, and hopefully I'm able to help you in some way on your journey.